ClearanceJobs.com. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live or Twitch Live or wherever you're watching this and streaming this. We tried pre-scheduling this. So to like 11 of you who said you were tuning in, hello.
Thank you.
I hope you're here. Join us. Comments should display on this page too, which we've started. So hopefully you are seeing us in real and in person. If you have a comment or a question, type it into the chat wherever you happen to be streaming this, and we should be able to pull in comments that are coming in from other locations. So again, Lindy Kaiser, Clearance Jobs, joined by Jill Hamilton, senior editor of ClearanceJobs.com. This was like a mystery live update because hey, Anthony, thank you. Thank you. I never trust that I'm actually live until somebody says hello. Hello, Jared, Mohammed. Oh, they're all coming in. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's live event. It was a surprise. We wanted you to be surprised about what we were talking about. Actually, I just didn't edit it and I forgot because I knew this was going to happen, Jill. So this was like, it's a snow day here. So this is what we call high stakes live, people. High stakes live. Because where are my children right now? What's happening? They're inside. I told them they couldn't play in the snow because it was still snowing. Guess my location. First person to have a right answer will get a Secret Squirrel t-shirt. Where did it snow today? Person who comes and shovels my driveway will also get a Secret Squirrel t-shirt. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the comp report. Jill Hamilton, our senior editor, is in charge of our compensation report for Clearance Jobs. Has been every year. If you haven't got the link to download it, I know the delightful Katie Keller is going to be joining us in the chat. We will post a link in the description here. Our annual compensation report, probably one of our most sought after reports every year. Everybody wants to know, show them the money. They want to know all about the compensation. So, and they actually did get some money this year, Jill. So talk about that. What are the highlights? Oh, Katie's there. She posted the link. What are the highlights from the comp report?
I think the biggest highlight is one stayed steady. We have the same buckets of people, not buckets, you're more than buckets, right? But number of people
better than binders. Better bucket than a binder. That's right. That's what I always say.
So same numbers, basket. Same numbers of clearance, top secret clearance holders compared to same number of polygraph holders. Everything else is stable, but what didn't stay stable was compensation in a good way, in that it shot up this year, matching, I think, what recruiters have been saying for a long time, where like candidates who want to stay in national security are pushing for more and more compensation. And that's true. And so that's what we saw this past year with a big 7% overall increase. So yeah, it was a good year for national security candidates. Definitely got an increase there.
Awesome. Everybody likes to hear that. I mean, I think it's kind of representative. It makes sense that because we do the comp report every year, and it's always tough, right? Because we don't necessarily see the same fluctuations. And that is because what we're looking at, we always talk about with the comp report, it is kind of this, it does combine a lot of the buckets of the cleared community. So looking at overall compensation is not necessarily the best way to view the report. What I like about it is you segment it a lot of different ways. So you can look, and I think in generalities, it helps to say, if you're one of those people, I always see the comments in the chatter about getting a clearance upgrade, or, hey, I just went from a secret to a TS. That's where it can be super helpful in those salary negotiations, or even as a recruiter to talk with your, counterparts and say, hey, we have to pay this candidate more. They have a clearance upgrade. You talk a lot about industries, degrees, certifications, how all of those different buckets will pay. And we're talking high level here. We're also going to post a link. If you want more of a deep dive into the comp report, Jill and Evan Lesser, founder and president of ClearanceJobs.com, are going to be doing a webinar next week. Unlike our LinkedIn Lives, which are crazy, I talk about snow and buckets and baskets and binders, all the bees. Then next week, we will get a more professional take on the comp report. This is the hot takes, as I like to say. Yeah. I didn't tell you that, Jill, that we were doing hot takes ahead of time, but this is the hot takes comp report.
I just assume that,
That's good at this point. No, zero. I don't think anybody has gotten my location correct yet as well, too. I've seen a lot of Colorado It probably is snowing in Colorado. I am not in Colorado. Maybe I shouldn't reveal my location. Is that an OPSEC thing? But the good news is Katie Keller has posted the link to our squirrel t-shirt. So you don't have to wait for me to send you one. If you would like your own secret squirrel t-shirt, you can sign up for one. So as I was coming full circle in this conversation, I started to talk about certifications and degrees. So maybe talk a little bit about that from the comp report, Jill. How do we ask and how do we break that down even? So kind of if people download the report, what kind of data will it give you about compensation relative to degree or experience or certifications?
Yeah. Well, first off, we have for the report over 50,000 respondents who initially enter the survey. So, which is similar to every single year. And then we remove anybody who is active duty military. I mean, we still ask them the questions, but they're not included in this sample size since they have their own compensation numbers that they're tracking to. And then we also like unemployed or if they don't have a clearance, if they're student, those things we trickle down. So we're left with over 22,000 respondents, which is comparable to what we had comparable to last year as well. So once we get that, then we have people who have active or current security clearances. And then we run through a lot of different questions, what's your education level? So we have, a lot who have just a bachelor's, some who also have a master's, and we show compensation levels for all those different degree levels, whether it's GED, high school, associate, just some college courses, all that type of information. We also segment it out by gender. We also segment out by location, whether inside the United States or outside. And then, like you said, we do look at industry fields, even looking at industry fields according to career levels, because sometimes it's not enough to just say, hey, systems engineer, even though that's one of our top paying jobs that we show year after year. It's good to look at that. It's like, okay, what can I expect in early career, mid-career, 10 years later, that. And then, like you said, if we do ask about certifications, whether or not candidates have them. And we've done reports on the certifications in the past. So they have stayed similar year over year. So happy to post one of those out just to see if you want to see what are the top certifications that candidates are choosing. Obviously high on like CompTIA, security, some of those ones that will show up for a majority when they say yes, but well over half of the survey respondents say that they are certified. So, and what we do see are different ways that you can change your compensation numbers. Obviously, experience is a big factor. So, when you have 10 years experience, you're making more than somebody who's, years behind you. But a way to change that is graduate degree. Then we definitely see a bump up by, like $10,000-$15,000 usually. And then you add a certification of that, what I like to call the triple threat: experience, education, and certifications, and you just see like such exponential growth much faster with your compensation. So I think those are good things to consider for candidates, and even for employers when when you have a candidate coming in, like compensating that accordingly versus, just to kind of parse out what that should look like.
Yeah. So. Now we have had Jeffrey asked if he could ask a question. Yes, Jeffrey, you can always ask a question. It probably should be on topic to compensation, but Jill knows that I'm not great at sticking to a topic. So if you have a crazy question that's not related to compensation, just throw it up there. If we don't respond to it now, we'll go back through the chat thread later and potentially get to those. I think, a couple folks have asked about promotion potential. And then clearance again, upgrades again. Brian asked about how do you get a company to sponsor you for a full scope poly? Obviously, knowing if you download the comp report, you will see having that full scope poly, working for the IC, the NSA, CIA. Mm-hmm. It pays to be in those positions. It's really going to be tied to the position. But I was on a webinar with Booz Allen yesterday, and they specifically said they were looking for candidates who are willing to go in for a polygraph. Because we just know we've written articles about that at ClearanceJobs, Jill. Not everybody is destined to succeed in a polygraph examination. And so some of those people know that. So companies are looking for folks for certain positions, and it is tied to the position. So if you see some of those buckets where, hey, buckets, If you're looking for a drinking game word today, Jill, you started it. That's going to be the one shot every time. So if you're looking for something, there you go. Fill one of those compensation buckets with a specific thing and look at the position, look at the company, and talk to recruiters. And that's what I love about engaging here. Engage with recruiters that are on ClearanceJobs. For every position listed, there will be a recruiter listed for that position. Connect with that person and say, hey, I see this position requires a polygraph. Would you put me in for an upgrade to get that? And I think if you have the motivation and the skills, all of that will work together in your favor to get those positions. Lewis also said he prefers secret otters. I mean, who doesn't like otters? Is there an inappropriate joke? I don't know. I never know. Like
it's unexpected. That's all. It's great.
Who doesn't? But yeah, and then also, do we ask about, and I know that'll be down the road, we usually do top certifications. So maybe because we've had a few questions about specific certifications and you kind of mentioned that. That's also usually a report that we've done and we'll update on. And we have that, from previous years. You can pull that data from before.
Right. Yeah, I think some of your bigger ones like Six Sigma and PMP, of course, they are in the top 10 list for compensation levels. You pretty much have to think through, obviously the IT and engineering ones, you're going to have a lot of people who have them, and they're also going to turn out. Some of them are going to turn out higher dollar values, especially depending upon the roles that are requiring them. So I think it's really important to look at your own career trajectory and then look at what certifications support those, and then make your decisions to keep adding them over the years to keep increasing your earning potential. So yeah, if you really want to get into project management, I think, especially if you've got a tech background and you're looking to make that transition, a PMP is a great way to stand out, that you don't just have the tech skills, which is critical, especially in project management, where you have to understand all the different pieces of the project. If you don't understand it, it is hard to manage that. Not impossible. There are some people out there who are very project management oriented that can bridge that gap, especially with the right team. But I think it's a great way for you to personally stand out if you get like a PMP or just some of those other management certifications that can kind of keep pushing you forward.
Yeah. No, and then questions come in about, clearance renewal, how long a clearance lasts. If I have a secret, is it easier to get a top secret? Those are different investigations. So if you have a secret clearance, and you will note, it does, again, the higher your clearance level goes, the more compensation you get. I mean, that is a fact. It has to be tied to the position. And it is not necessarily quote unquote easier. So a company is going to have to go through the time. The government is going to do a new background investigation. I say the easiest part for you is that you know the process, right? And the forms are pretty much identical for secret and top secret. It is a different investigation on the government side. So that's why I say it's not necessarily going to be easier, faster, because you're going to have to fill out a new SF-86 and go through the process. But I think for you as the applicant, the more you know, the more information you have, the easier that process can and will be. So we talked about IC security clearances specifically because we've had a ton of chatter on the news site about that. So yeah, NSA is doing a big hiring push right now. CIA is always hiring. So talk about compensation related to the intel community, maybe
I think with those two specific agencies, you've seen a great push on the CIA, not only to balance health and wellness, like they have an on-site wellness facility they've added. They've started this, they have a hiring portal now, making it easier to express interest into them, and then they can follow up with you. So it's clear that they're definitely hiring. And they also every year pay the highest amount. Raise this past year was only 5% increase, but their average compensation for them far eclipses everybody else already. And one thing to keep in mind too, government employees, their raise this past year was a little bit less than them, but that's just because federal employee, the percentage increase, that magical 4.6% that's supposed to wouldn't hit until 2023 anyway. Once everything gets signed and put into motion, it takes a little bit, no surprise, it's a little slower in the federal government. So, but, and NSA, while they're a little bit lower, they actually got 11% raise this past year in compensation. So people who showed up day in, day out over at Fort Meade, they were compensated for that, and even like CIA salary satisfaction is 4% higher for them than the rest of the cleared population. So they're definitely happier with their salaries there. And it does, I think in national security, it is an important piece. It's like it's not all about the money. There is a purpose. There is a higher good that we're pushing forward to try to keep our nation secure. But at the same time, people got to eat, and inflation is kind of, like it's everything.
Mama's got bills to pay. Those bills aren't paying themselves. I'm not going to be shoveling my own driveway. Yeah, I actually probably I will. Probably I will.
Right. You want people to be not like an insider risk or insider threat risk, so compensation is a piece of that puzzle, and making sure the workforce in general is happy, feels good.
You don't go to the government for the money, because even there's a section about that in the report that talks about, it's about mission and stability. And I think if you've been working in the tech sector and you were recently laid off, like some of that mission and stability probably start to look pretty good. And, the government always has its pros and cons. But I think the compensation is solid. And I think when you pair the compensation with the mission and the ability to give back, and I do think one of the things that I do think is good within government, I like to give them a shout out when I can, they are trying to make it easier to on and off ramp. So again, if you find yourself, if you're joining us now and you're currently actively looking, and you maybe haven't worked in national security before, there are companies that are willing to sponsor you for your security clearance. So being willing to jump on in. The water's fine. Check out Jill's compensation report. You can make enough to, afford your mortgage, and you will get experience. That's what I always tout for my years in the government. I was not, I did not work for the government for very long. I didn't last very long. Probably a lot of reasons for that. But the time that I was there, I still have relationships that you create. So the intangibles of working are solid. I'm getting all sappy, even though we're trying to talk about money here. So money and mission, get them both over with the government. But you maybe stick to that, like the job and salary satisfaction parts of the report, because we do ask about that. And I do think I like to give you questions I don't know the answer to and throw them to you on the call, so we can just pretend we know the answers. But I do think that the satisfaction for both job and salary for national security is generally higher than the national average. I feel like we've compared that before. The numbers are solid, not necessarily always. Am I lying, Jill? What is the answer?
I don't know about that comparison, but I do know that they are generally solid, and they stay the same. Except for salary satisfaction bumping up by 4% overall this past year. So obviously people are a little bit more satisfied with their salaries here. But job satisfaction too, I think that's where that mission piece comes in, because I get it. Some jobs, when you work in defense contracting, like the movies show one type of job, or CIA shows, like you see one thing out in Hollywood. And we've talked about those before, like the myths that people have about working in national security. But there is, like, those projects, sometimes there are some dreary days, but there's a lot of things good that those projects are doing, that, you work on some system that helps, one branch of the military communicate out more quickly for their people who are overseas and things like that. Like, that's actually a big deal, so it might seem like an everyday type of job, but overall, that you're contributing to kind of the greater good, I guess, not to be too sappy here, but there is a piece of that,
Hey, so
it might be cool to work on like TikTok and stuff like that, but you're working on an app that, I'm not trying to take away from like people who work on an app that, you take tiny videos from, and people spend a lot of time watching tiny videos, but there is a comparison there. Like, there is something great about working on some of the applications in the federal government that people are doing that is really helping increase our national security. So
yeah. And then Bruce has a good comment about work-life balance. We ask about that. There are better opportunities now in DoD, Intel, I see than there used to be. So I think we ask about the remote work piece. And I can't remember, but I thought it was a fairly significant amount that still had some hybrid or remote work options. And I think at this point, we're far enough out from COVID that you'll see, especially for that government contracting community, there are hybrid career options available. You're not going to be stuck in a SCIF all of the time. There are a ton of studies taking place right now, I can say, that are looking into SCIF life and how to, improve the typical, SCIF situation, shared SCIF spaces, getting out from the DC Metro. Oh, because that's another bullet too that you kind of talk about. It still pays to be in the DC Metro. The DMV definitely has the highest compensation, but we're seeing a steady trickle right out from the DC Metro, and not a ton, but enough that we're kind of tracking it. And I think that's good news for national security, that you don't just have to be in 2 states and a district in order to find a job supporting the government. There are positions across the country, including wherever the heck I'm at, which I feel still zero people have guessed, unless I missed it. I'll look later. Maybe somebody knows. Again, my OPSEC is good. Talk about that, Jill.
Your OPSEC.
No, talk about the DC. Go full circle. Go back to the thing I started with and not where I ended. DC Metro versus the rest of the country.
Well, first off, I think the remote piece is important because that increased by 7% this past year from the number of people who have access to that in national security. So typically, I think you're going to find that that's going to be like a hybrid approach. And most people say, hey, if I can't get, and you can check out remote jobs even on our site. We list for those. There are employers hired for them. And even government agencies, if you want to work for the federal government too, will offer a different remote. Like if for a lot of agencies and departments, they've been on a hybrid schedule since they came back to the offices post-COVID. So, and I think, when you see out in the public sector, a lot of companies have switched their messaging from, oh, everybody can get remote jobs. You get one and you get one. And now they've kind of switched a little bit to saying, hey, actually, we'd like to see you all the time, maybe more often. And so it's not as lucrative for people to go out and get those, and it might be better to stay in national security. But a lot of people said, hey, if you can't give me remote, give me extra vacation days. They really want that work-life balance. And then obviously bonuses help too. Money talks. And like you said, we do see the geography shifting just a little bit each year, where we move slower in national security industry, where, you're not going to see huge spikes up and down like this all the time. But reacting to everything, it is generally like a slower shift. But DC especially has gone down. Virginia remains relatively stable this year. Other years it's had a few drops here and there, but DC specifically, and even Maryland. And then you see other states rising up a little bit. Florida, not surprising, Texas rising up. So they have like same percentages as California, which we haven't had like 3 years ago. That wasn't the story. Where California and Colorado were always like front runners right up there with the DMV area.
Yeah, I mean, there are hubs and support opportunities working for the government across the country, and that's always good news. That, again, if you want to live, Matt, Orlando, I'd take it. I just look like a Disney princess, so clearly Jill and I should both be living in Orlando, but unfortunately, neither of us are. But there are clear job opportunities. Again, wherever you want to support the mission, you can probably find something, and that's you can dig into the numbers and get more, because the compensation piece does make a difference depending on what region you're living in. And cost of living and all of that. And I think we're seeing a little more fluctuation on that maybe with COVID, where companies are having to level the playing field because they're saying, hey, if this person can work anywhere, I'm going to have to pay a salary that's just based on the position, maybe not based on the locale, because they're opening it up to different places. But I think it's also worth mentioning too, always, some people want to work in an office. And so like we kind of tout the remote work. I think the flexibility is the piece that people are looking for. We just had a call and somebody was talking about that before. Like if somebody gave me 100% remote work, I would not be interested in it. There are people who want to have an office to go to. Sometimes I want that too, because I'm like, it's very loud out here, people. It would be nice. Coffee, there's perks to an office. It's not all bad. Nebraska, Ray. Ding, ding, ding. I like it because it's alive. None of you have been on there since the beginning. Most of you were like these. I don't know what Lindy Kaiser's talking about. That Jill chick, she seems like she knows what she's going on, but we're out. We're done. We're getting near the end of our time. We've been talking about our ClearanceJobs compensation report. Download it if you have not already. Again, this was hot takes. So if you were like, man, I need more, this was like the side. These are the sides. This is the carbs, the fluffy carbs. And if you would like the meat, join Jill and Evan Lesser, founder and president of ClearanceJobs. Evan always has the best take on the overall market conditions. I love to talk to him. So it will be great to have both of them on our webinar next week. Evan to be able to kind of talk about what's going on in the cleared marketplace. Jill to be able to talk about the nuts and bolts of the comp report. Again, more than 50,000 responses. Was that our highest ever, right? Most?
It's either equal or maybe a little bit more last year. But by like 1,000 last year.
Yes, Lindy. Yes, record.
Yes, Lindy.
Record-setting numbers filled up. That's just a lot of people, though. When we talk about the size of the cleared population, and I love you all, but you're just not clicking on a lot of survey links to fill them out. I'm sorry, because you work in national security. And we kick out respondents who do not have a security clearance from the report. So to say it really is the best report, the best insight into compensation numbers, and I think, again, salary, job satisfaction. If you're a recruiter or a hiring manager in this space or a FSO, you need a copy of this report. If you're a candidate, a job seeker, you need to get a copy of this report. It is Jill's baby. She did a fantastic job every year. Love you, Jill. Love your comp report. It was great. Anything else, Jill, that I didn't ask about?
That's everything. I think just everybody download it. It's so fun to read through it. I mean, it is such a fun, I mean, I know it is a little bit my baby, but like it's such a fun process, weirdly enough, to sit in 10 different spreadsheets, and to see the story that emerges from the numbers. I think that's the fun aspect of it. So hopefully you enjoy reading and answer any questions. You'll see lots more communication about it, and join the webinar next week.
Yeah, we'll have a link to it posted. We have a few of them in the chat. So folks are asking, yep. I mean, Katie's in it to win it. She is sharing it all over the place. So find the report. We're going to be sharing it across ClearanceJobs. So if you even just type in ClearanceJobs, go to the ClearanceJobs news site, the website, and you can find a copy of our comp report. It always lives on our About site. We have dozens of white papers on our About site. If you need content related to anything in national security or security clearance, we've probably written about it. If we haven't yet, send it to Jill or I, and we will write about it and add to it. So if you need information about the clearance process, come to us. We are here for you. We are not with the government, but we are here to help. Maybe.
Right.
So thanks for playing, Ray, for knowing I live in Omaha. It is snowed in. We're snowed in here. There's like a foot. I had to like trudge out to my chicken coop this morning through the snow. No,
you want to know the temperature here?
No,
I won't tell you.
Tell me. It's like 50?
60? But it's raining. It's raining in Virginia. We don't get snow this year at all. That's because I bought my kids snow boots. So
yeah, there's going to be a snow mountain here. So if you're tuning in from Omaha or Des Moines, our Des Moines office, they also had snow. Enjoy your snow days, people. The rest for Jill, enjoy your 60 degrees. It's fine. As long as if I can like look out the window at it, it's not terrible. Just as long as I don't have to.
It's probably very pretty.
Go outside. It is. It's beautiful. 6 degrees in Delaware. Yep. You guys have the nice weather. Awesome. Anyway, Jill and I are just shooting the breeze now. People are like, what is going on? Download the comp report. Tune into our webinar next week. If you have questions about the clearance process, we have answers. Thank you for joining us for this live ClearanceJobs update.